Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This took place years ago, but still makes me laugh at the sheer stupidity of it all. It started as all truly great sagas published on the internet begin. When I met a random guy through a friend at a bar in a city. Let's call the guy I met Mark for the purpose of this story. My friend had introduced me to Mark because for a few years leading up to that introduction, I shared an idea I had for a business with anyone who would listen. I was told Mark wanted to start his own business, had worked in the industry, knew a lot about the subject matter required, and thought my idea was good. Mark and I met up for a lunch. We hit it off and he said he'd start the business as a CEO and agreed to me taking a part-time operational role. I agreed to help solely in a part-time operational role because I couldn't afford to quit my day job. I put in 15% of the cash for 5% ownership since Mark was going to put in founder hours, 80 plus hours a week, and agreed to put up 85% of the cash, which was more money than I could afford to risk on a new venture. I worked part-time. I did what I said I would. I even tried to be of assistance on things I had no experience with. I connected Mark with a fella I had done business with before. We will call him Paul. Paul and I got into a dispute ourselves. More on this later. Anyway, let's fast forward a few months, and I got into a dispute with Mark over stationery. Yes, stationery not being to his liking caused him to flip out. This was despite him picking the stationery out. Next up, the contract I got from Mark was not what we agreed to. The legal work required a few months to get it done, and I had expected delays, but when I finally got it, the paperwork didn't represent what I had agreed to own. Not only that, but my investment wasn't being acknowledged under the terms we had committed to when I put the money in. Now, as I said, I wasn't able to risk much and I only invested what I could afford to lose. So this wasn't a huge sum of money. I didn't want to make a big deal about it since the amount was small and he began promising a new contract when the business could pay for the lawyers to make changes. I signed nothing. Then it worsened. Mark and I started to fight anytime we were in a room together. And I think back, it's almost comical how angry he will get in my presence. I have other things to do with my time than squabble over stuff like stationery, so I worked on my areas of the business and hoped things would grow. I stopped in whenever I could and would help out regularly as needed with a little Mark interaction as possible. Paul would intervene sometimes when Mark would get particularly difficult to be around. Anyway, fast forward about 2 years and Mark can't help but tell everyone who will listen that the business is going well. I have no idea how well things are going because Mark isn't giving me any updates. I get a call around Christmas from Mark. He wishes me a happy holiday, then drops the bomb on me that he wants to terminate my involvement and refund my investment. I decline the investment refund and say I'm happy to no longer work with him. In my head, I think it's kind of hilarious that he thinks this will just end that easily, but I said nothing to that. According to him, Mark and I hang up with him aggravated about my refusal to take the refund of my investment. Mark then sent me an email that I had resigned. This had no basis in fact, but certainly was creative about what we had just discussed. I corrected him immediately in a reply stating that he wanted to no longer work together, and that I can see that being the case but want to discuss my investment. A few days later, Mark demands I come pick up a check for a reimbursement for my investment. I do not come and get it. Next thing you know, the company attorney huffs and puffs and tries to scare me with some strongly worded letter. This is the same idiot attorney who screwed up my contract to work on the business, and also my investment agreement. Let's call this attorney Mr. Khan for the sake of this story. I sent an email response to Mr. Khan that he screwed up. The company seems to be doing well, that I hear rumors about how well that I want to be on this for the foreseeable future, and I will not take a one-to-one cash out for what I put in. The attorney then emails me back stating in writing that Mark never accepted my electronic transfer into the company account. Instead, Mark has another company he accepted the money into, a company I've never heard of, a company that is different from the name of the recipient on my electronic transfer, a company that will be committing wire fraud to accept the money I sent. On that note, I did some sleuthing online. I found out Mark had been forming one company every month or two. Then there were media reports and documents he let slip in shared drives he forgot I had access to from when we agreed to work together. Mark was too cheap and stupid to pay for tech help, so he was using my shared folders I had created, and I certainly wasn't obligated to turn off the shares if he wanted to work out of them. Those documents showed me Mark had recently raised money in a company I sent the payment to at 200 times the valuation I had bought into it at. And Mark didn't disclose my investment to the new investors. Mark had, however, put me on documents showing my ownership to previous investors. Not on documents I have ever seen before, but documents he had been sending around. When I share my suspicions that Mark is committing wire fraud with Mr. Khan, I am told I am the one breaking the law by knowing anything about the investment documents the company has used. Mr. Khan tells me that by not picking up my check, I will not be entitled to any money and to contact law enforcement if I think something illegal has happened. He cautions, though, that I will be the one in trouble. Cue the malicious compliance. I let the different respective members of the Securities and Exchange Commission along with law enforcement know what happened to me. I provided them with all the documents I had from the matter. It took about 5 years for the investigation to conclude, for charges to be brought, for a trial to conclude, and for Mark to go to jail. They say the government is slow, but they aren't kidding with just how slow. Maybe it was slow because Mark was running a large, tens of millions of dollars large fraud. Anyway, Mark will be serving time for about 30 felony charges they found, uncovering the details of his Ponzi scheme. He will be away for a long time. I never did anything wrong. With the information I was able to provide, Mr. Khan ended up getting disbarred. There were other things Mr. Khan did outside of what is shared in this post that I could not share, or it could help to identify me to the folks involved. The investigators credited me with bringing the fraud to their attention. I gained an education and I got to help bring down a crook. The sheer stupidity of Mark is that he didn't even follow the business plan I had. He just used it as a story to convince investors to give him money. It is a business model that works very, very well. It took a few more years, but I am now in a position to be pursuing this business full-time, with people of high integrity who all work together to ensure each other's success. We expect to have an extremely profitable year in 2023 after proving the business model worked in 2022. Context. For starters, I will say that I'm rather blessed in the gene pool. I don't mean to come off as conceited. It's just full truth for the sake of the story. But because of that, during high school, the boys saw me as nothing but arm candy. My revenge was served in my senior year of high school, and I'm now graduated. This story involves two boys whose names I will not mention. The story. Throughout high school, I was extremely quiet. My name was known in my school, but not by choice, even though I kept to myself during all of high school. Yet people still knew my business and I knew theirs. Freshman year, I had a class with a boy, Blondie. I had never seen this boy before, and in my complete honest opinion, he was unfortunate looking. He'll pass me notes during class saying I was pretty and asking for my Snapchat. After a few weeks, I gave in cause I was quite the loner, and I thought it wouldn't hurt to know someone. At first, he was charming, constant compliments, sweet gestures, really the whole package. He asked me to homecoming, and at first I politely declined because me and my friends planned on going as a group and celebrating my best friend's birthday afterwards. He practically begged me for weeks to go with him, so I said fine, and I went out of pity. Like I said, the time leading up to this, he was so sweet and charming. Then once he thought he had me, he completely changed. He started bragging about me in all the wrong ways, forcing me to be late to my classes because I had to walk him to his and I had to be happy about it. God forbid I showed 1 ounce of disappointment for constantly being late to my classes. We attended one of the school events leading up to homecoming together, and I was absolutely not allowed to leave his side. The whole night I was accompanied by Blondie and his friend Wheezy. I had to beg him to let me see my friends, and when he never complied, I ended up finding a moment to slip away. When he noticed my absence, it got ugly. Blondie and Wheezy came up to me surprisingly calmly and asked for me to come speak with them for a moment. I hesitated, but I figured it was best for me if I just went with them. Once we were out of sight of the hundreds of other students, they each grabbed one of my arms and dragged me into the woods that surrounded the school. All I will say is that unspeakable acts were committed against me. At the end of that night, I looked them right in their sorry faces and said, "You'll never see a Pride Day past graduation." From that moment, I had every intention of ruining these boys' lives, no matter how long it took. After that night, I was distraught, and understandably so. I told none of my friends or family until 3 years later, when I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It is worth mentioning that because Wheezy and Blondie were fairly popular, everyone knew I had relations with them. But of course, no one knew about that night. I must have made quite an impact on Blondie, because for the remainder of my high school career, I would hear new rumors about me here and there. The typical rumors we've all heard. I was a girl who never spoke, but everyone knew. I was a girl whose name got called during attendance, and when you heard it, you turned to whisper to your friends and texted your group chat about me. Despite all of that, I kept my peace and quiet. I never started problems, nor did I even slightly entertain anything that came out of anyone's mouth. During my senior year, my older cousin visited with his family from out of state. To my advantage, my cousin was a total tech whiz. I mean, this kid knew the in and out of every little thing. Predictably, his fascination came with the perk of being able to hack into anything and everything. This was straight out of a movie. My cousin and I were extremely close, and I felt it was time to start my revenge. I told him everything, sparing no details. He was understandably unsettled and was down to help me however I wanted. He was able to get into the school system and change their grades here and there. They weren't the smartest kids in class, so bad grades weren't necessarily put past them. We hacked into their social media and changed small things here and there, posted and texted embarrassing things and so on. I enjoyed doing these small things, but I still wanted them to suffer. My cousin's older brother was fortunately a police officer, so we made a plan to go to the school principal. At this point, I was already 18 and didn't need to be accompanied by an adult or legal guardian. As vulnerable and uncomfortable as it was for me, I sat in his office, told him everything, and asked if the security footage possibly went back 3 years. Much to my surprise, it did. The only reason I even tried with the cameras that may or may not have been in the woods was because of the thickness of these woods. I figured it was worth a shot, considering the state of our country when it comes to school safety. It would be smart to have cameras covering these woods. And I was right. My school had cameras set up in every inch of that place, and they kept it all on a few hard drives for each year as a personal precaution because of FERPA. I asked my principal to not pursue any punishments on the boys because I would be doing it myself, and he would only get it my way. I was fully prepared to have been stopped at that moment, but he said okay, and let me be on my way. I brought it to my police cousin's attention, and at this point, my parents as well. My police cousin and parents went to school and requested the video footage to be handed over, and under FERPA, nothing can prevent them from turning it over to the police because it was not an educational video. My cousin took it from there in that department and filed a case. Sometime later, between the embarrassing social media posts and tweaks in their online statuses, they quickly plummeted to the bottom of the social rank. Some more time passes and the entire school is now aware of Wheezy and Blondie's unfortunate acts on that fateful night mid-October. The two boys have been arrested from their homes and charged with sexual assault. They were both tried as adults because they were 17, and that's quite a hefty crime. Both sentenced to 20 years, release date being sometime in 2041. I've written this story in such a way that leaves out the details of how severely I was hurt by these two. The words they used, the force they used, the physical pain they caused me. I like to believe that I am an extremely strong woman for being able to hold it in for as long as I did. I essentially went through the healing process on my own, and for that, I applaud myself. I'm sure there were other ways to approach this, but I do not care. They deserve nothing, and I'm proud of myself. I worked nights for over a year. The route home took me on a rural one-lane highway. No street lights, lots of curves, lots of trees, lots of deer. The speed limit on this stretch is 55 miles per hour. Almost everyone goes 65. But I had noticed cops cracking down on people speeding on that road, so I stopped pushing the speed limit so much. I was on my way home tired after a 12-hour overnight shift. It was pitch black out. No stars or moon because of cloud cover. I mean, it was dark, but there was no one else on the roads at that time. Still, I didn't want to deal with deer or drive too fast on the winding roads while tired, so I kept my speed pretty close to the speed limit. A car pulls up behind me, rides my tail, flashing his lights, making it like he wants to pass. Now, there is no shoulder, so I can't just pull over and let him go. Also, there is no one else out on the roads at this hour and hasn't been for the whole drive. He could easily pass me, so I slow down and he keeps on my tail. Despite being on a straightaway where he could easily pass me, I set my cruise control at exactly 55 miles per hour and decided to ignore him, because I'm petty like that. I was going 58, almost 60 on the straightaways, but not anymore. You're gonna be a jerk despite having ample opportunity to pass? That's on you, dog. As soon as we get to a no passing zone, as you do, he apparently decides he's had enough and floors it, zipping around me. Finally, moments later, I see flashing lights in my rear view. A police car pulls around me and pulls over the impatient driver. Boy, am I glad I kept it at the speed limit. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.